Welcome back, everybody. In today's video, I'm breaking down my top 26 remaining quarterback rankings, top 36 remaining running back rankings, top 36 remaining wide receiver rankings, and top 24 remaining tight end rankings. I'm going to keep this rather short in each positional ranking group because just for brevity, because of how long this video could be if I really just talked about every player like that. Another thing to mention is players who are on bye and do not have games scheduled this week are not included in these rankings. So if you notice somebody's missing in these rankings and it's because they're on bye, that's why. Another thing is if players have already played on Thursday, I'm not going to include them. I'm not going to include them rather in these rankings. But moving on to the tiers here and the quarterbacks specifically. In the elite tier, I have Justin Fields, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and Drake May. With Justin Fields, the rushing upside is undeniable. Everybody has a career game against Dallas. He blew up against Miami this past week. I think it's safe to say he's an elite tier fantasy quarterback for this week. Josh Allen playing New England. I think he's matchup proof, obviously, as he's shown us the past couple of years. Hurts against Denver is a tough matchup, but I do think he's going to get a rushing touchdown, and I do think he's going to end up throwing another touchdown as well. Drake May has been a consistent QB1. He's been inside the top 12 each of the past 3 weeks. Moving on to the next tier, we have Prescott and Mahomes. They both have cake matchups. I think they're going to be able to exploit them. Moving on to the third tier, we have Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff, and Daniel Jones. One player from this tier I want to mention is Jared Goff. He is in a plus matchup here against Cincinnati. There's the chance that this turns into a barn burner if Cincinnati is able to get their stuff together. But I do think he's going to throw touchdowns to Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams. And I do think he's going to feed Sam Laporta as well in this game. I think due to the lack of rushing upside, he's just going to be around a top 10 quarterback. But I still think that obviously, in a 12-team format, a top 10 quarterback is obviously a must start. Then we also have Daniel Jones against Las Vegas. I think he gets a little bit of a bump this week against the Vegas Raiders, who, if you can just contain Max Crosby, which I understand is a tough thing to do, you can definitely get it done against them. The next tier, we have Justin Herbert, Jackson Dart, and Kyler Murray. One player I want to mention here is Jackson Dart. He finds himself playing against New Orleans. It is a cake matchup. I think he's going to be able to exploit it. We've seen the rushing upside already. The loss of Neighbors, I think, really cuts his ceiling, though. But I think it's such an exploitable matchup, and teams just don't have enough film on him that he is going to be able to exploit this matchup and be right around a low-end QB1 for us, which is awesome. The next tier, we have Bryce Young, Spencer Rattler, CJ Stroud, Geno Smith, and Sam Darnold. One player I want to mention from this tier is Bryce Young playing against Miami. I think that this is a potential get-right matchup for him. I'd like to see some more of the rushing upside come back. Without Chuba, I think that Rico Dowdle is going to be in the game a lot more. I think he's going to get the majority of the touches there. And I think that that is going to help him in the passing game as well, because I think he's a much better receiving back than Chuba is. And I do think that Tet McMillan is also going to have a pretty good game. Moving on to the next tier of quarterbacks, we have Trevor Lawrence, Tua Tagovailoa, Jake Browning, and Carson Wentz. Most of these guys have just absolutely brutal matchups. Specifically with Carson Wentz, I think that last week I thought he was going to struggle. I really do think he's going to struggle this week against Myles Garrett and that stout Browns defense. That defensive line is one of the best in the NFL. And and that's not even to mention Mason Graham, right? And finally, in the last tier, we have Cooper Rush, Cam Ward, and Dylan Gabriel. With Cam Ward, we just have not seen an upside game yet. I think he is a very talented quarterback. I just think the system and all of the players around him, for the most part, are just so inept that there's just not much he's going to be able to do. And then finally, I do want to mention Dylan Gabriel. In his first start here against Minnesota, they're going to have those odd fronts. You don't ever really know where the pressure's coming from unless you are a top-tier quarterback mentally. I just do not want any part of that. The rushing upside probably isn't going to be there. I think he's going to struggle pretty mightily in this game. Moving on to the top 36 remaining running backs. Remember, running backs on bye who have played on Thursday are not included. In the elite tier, we have Jahmyr Gibbs, Devon Achane, and Amari Hampton. With Jahmyr Gibbs, I think he is going to tear this matchup apart. I think he's going to be explosive. I think we see multiple touchdowns, and I think we see at least 5 receptions from him in this game. I think he's going to go off. In the next tier, we have Jonathan Taylor, Quinshon Judkins, Breece Hall, Saquon Barkley, James Cook, and then Saquon Barkley. I want to mention Quinshon Judkins. It's a plus matchup against Minnesota. He scored a touchdown in each of the past 2 weeks. He's seen good usage in the passing game. I wasn't sure before the season if Dylan Sampson was going to steal that role because Sampson's a pretty solid receiving back himself. But Quinshon Judkins has put his name on the map, and I think he is a locked and loaded RB1, albeit probably more of a mid RB1 than a high end, most likely, in my opinion. Moving on to the next tier of running backs, we have Javonte Williams, Rachaad White, Cam Skattebo, Derrick Henry, and Alvin Kamara. With Alvin Kamara against New York Giants, it's a very good matchup for him. I think we do end up getting a touchdown finally from him. It's been a little bit of a drought, and I do worry for him the rest of season, though, with the emergence of the running back behind him in Kendre Miller. I don't think Kendre Miller has a ginormous game this week, but I do think that's something to note for the future. Moving on to the next tier of running backs, we have Ashton Jeanty and Rico Dowdle. I want to mention Rico Dowdle here. He finds himself getting, in my opinion, the bulk of the work here for the Carolina Panthers. It's a plus matchup against Miami. I think he sees heavy utilization in the passing game, and I think he's going to be a big plug-in for Bryce Young this week. Moving on to the next tier of running backs, we have Woody Marks, Chase Brown, and Jordan Mason. I want to mention Woody Marks here. I did that film breakdown of him a couple days ago. I think he's very talented. I think the situation is quite poor, but I think in what is a matchup against Baltimore that's a plus matchup for him, that he definitely is going to be relatively efficient. I think he sees work in the passing game as well, and I do think he ends up scoring a touchdown. Although I just want people to be a little bit wary that he may not just keep progressively getting more and more and more and more work. There is the potential that they lock him into some kind of a timeshare. But I do think that there is a ton of upside and it's a plus matchup. So I do think that he's a lock and loaded RB2 with the potential to prove me wrong and finish as an RB1. That'd be pretty cool. Then in the next tier, we have Michael Carter, Travis Etienne, and J.K. Dobbins. With Michael Carter against Tennessee, it's been reported indirectly that he's going to be the lead back. So I'm going to go with him over DeMarcado. I think he's a reasonably talented running back. I just don't think he's anything special athletically, and so I think he just kind of falls into that category of replaceable level running backs. But it's a plus matchup against Tennessee. I think he's going to get steady work in the receiving game, and I think he's a solid RB2 play this week. And the next tier, we have TreVeyon Henderson, Kenneth Walker, Tony Pollard, David Montgomery, and Zach Charbonnet. I want to mention TreVeyon Henderson here and really Ramondre as well. I think that we're going to see more and more and more and more work taken from Ramondre Stevenson by TreVeyon Henderson. I think that he's going to see a steady receiving floor in this game. And while I don't think he scores a touchdown, I do think we see more and more work from him. And I think he's efficient this week, leading to more work for him in the future. Moving on to the next tier, we have RJ Harvey, Stevenson, Davis, Chubb, DeMarcado, and Tyjae Spears. I want to mention with Tyjae Spears, he's been activated off of IR. It's been reported he's going to play. And I think this is a cake matchup for him. And I think it's the potential for him to see some work in the receiving game as well. And moving on to the final tier, we have Justice Hill, Trevor Etienne, JCM, and Isaiah Pacheco. With Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, while he has not gotten the workload that he deserves, he has been one of the best running backs on a per-touch basis in terms of advanced stats and efficiency. So I think it's going to be wheels up for him eventually, but for whatever reason, at this current moment in time, they're just not giving him the work necessary to be the potentially elite, at least runner of the football that he could be. And I want to give a special shout out to my Patreon members. Thank you to Big Hunt, SP, Mage Jack, Infamy MTG, AOYOB, and The Dawn. Without your support, this would not be possible. As you're probably well aware if you've been watching my videos for a while, I cannot get monetized because of the film breakdowns I do, and even just the little videos I have where I have clips of plays in them. They get demonetized every single time, making it, therefore, impossible to collect any revenue. So, obviously, your support is greatly appreciated. And if you are so inclined to become a member, the perks would be you will get access to a private Discord where we have both a real life and fantasy football chat, as well as a voice chat if you just don't want to have to type a bunch of stuff. I'll also give you detailed roster breakdowns and roster reviews where we talk about the strengths and weaknesses of your team. Then we kind of break it down further by looking into the scoring settings themselves and the starting lineup requirements to help you build the best team to help you dominate for years to come. In both Dynasty and then in Redraft, obviously, I'd help you with a good, solid game plan, especially if you know where you're drafting from. Then also give you detailed trade advice based on your specific league settings to help you dominate. Also give you access to private live streams and the ability to not only see videos at least one day early, but also the ability to suggest videos that you would like to be created. So if you would like to support the channel, I would really appreciate it. If not, just please like and subscribe. Let's get back to the video. Moving on to the top 36 remaining wide receivers. Remember, players who played on Thursday or who are on bye are not included. In the elite tier, we have Amon-Ra St. Brown and Garrett Wilson. I want to mention Garrett Wilson here. I've been pleasantly surprised as a fantasy owner in one of my dynasty leagues with Garrett Wilson. Justin Fields, in fact, has been able to get him the football. Now, these have been plus matchups, but Dallas is a plus matchup. I don't know how much better of a matchup you could ask for. Rome Odunze just tore them up 2 weeks ago. So I think Garrett Wilson is going to go off this week. It's an elite wide receiver one play. The next year we have Nico Collins, JSN, Jamar Chase, and George Pickens. With Jamar Chase, yes, the ceiling and the floor have both been lowered, but it's Jamar Chase. The talent is as evident as it's ever been. I think it's only time before one of these weeks he just goes off. And I think this is an exploitable matchup for him against Detroit. I think they're going to be losing. And so I do think he's going to be able to get the football in this one. The next year we have Justin Jefferson, Xavier Worthy, Sutton, BTJ, Quentin Johnston. Two players I want to talk about. Xavier Worthy, I think he's going to get a bunch of explosives this week, including a long touchdown. And I think Patrick Mahomes is going to decimate the Jags. Then BTJ against Kansas City. I bet you're pretty surprised. I think he's going to end up scoring in this game. One thing that I liked is they were working around his fear, at least we think it's his fear of the middle of the field and getting destroyed, but working him outside the numbers on out routes. There was a funny thing I saw on X where, if I'm remembering it correctly, every one of his receptions was on an out route at different varying distances this past week. But I think he scores a touchdown, and I think we finally see the return of Brian Thomas this week. Then in the next tier, we have Ted McMillan, J-Mo, Egbuka, and Pittman. I want to talk about Egbuka. He's been awesome. I do want to mention, though, that he did have a 70-yard touchdown on what was one of the most ridiculous throws I've ever seen from Baker Mayfield that shouldn't have been completed. So I do want to mention that I do think that he is being propped up a little bit by touchdowns, but I do think he's going to get it done through his actual receptions and yardage this week against Seattle, even in a tough matchup. The next tier, we have Deebo Samuel, Jalen Waddle, and Wan'Dale Robinson, as well as Jacoby Myers. I had to cut it off there for evening out the list purposes. With Wan'Dale Robinson, I think we're going to see a lot of volume from him this week against New Orleans. It's a cake matchup. I think they're going to pepper him with easy targets for Jackson Dart. In the next tier, we have A.J. Brown, Keenan Allen, MHJ, Godwin, and Devontae Smith. With Chris Godwin, he did have 10 targets in his return. While he didn't really do too much with them, he was knocking off a little bit of rust. I think he's a little bit better in this week, and I think we see a steady amount of volume in what should be a pretty exciting game between them and Seattle. In the next year, we have Zay Flowers, Stephon Diggs, Troy Franklin, Khalil Shakir, and Chris Olave. I want to mention Troy Franklin here against Philadelphia. His usage has definitely been encouraging this year. It was good to see that, finally we're seeing some of that connection between him and Bo Nix. I think we end up seeing a touchdown from him this week, so I do think he's a good bet for DFS. And in the final tier, we have Elik, Eomanor, Addison, Tolbert, Slayton, Shaheed, Higgins, and Judy. I want to mention Jalen Tolbert here. Kavonte Turpin is out, as well as CeeDee Lamb. So I do think that we're going to see a little bit extra volume this week for Jalen Tolbert, and I think he's also a sneaky DFS play this week. And what is not the worst matchup, because Michael Carter, the Jets cornerback, is out. I think Sauce sees a lot of George Pickens, and so I think Tolbert is going to be a good play this week. And moving on to the top 24 remaining tight end rankings. As I was recording this video, and one reason why I like to hold off doing these videos is it's just been announced that Brock Bowers is very unlikely to play this weekend. So anyways, he is not going to be included in these rankings. Instead, Michael Mayer is going to be included. So in the elite tier, we have Tyler Warren, Trey McBride, and Jake Ferguson. With Jake Ferguson, even Turpin's out now at this point. I think that's just going to consolidate the targets between Ferguson, George Pickens, and then Tolbert for the most part, and then Javonte Williams and the running backs as well. But I think all three of these guys are locked and loaded elite tight end one plays this week. In the next tier, we have Sam Laporta, Juwan Johnson, and Hunter Henry. With Juwan Johnson, it was a tough matchup this past week. It looked like he maybe tweaked his leg a little bit. I forget exactly what it was, but he did end up playing the entirety of the game. And up until this past week, he had been putting up massive numbers. I think we see a return to a lot more volume for him. It was a very tough matchup. In the next year, we have Dalton Kincaid and Mason Taylor. I want to mention both of these guys. With Kincaid, he's been on a streak of touchdown scoring. It's a plus matchup against New England. I think that he gets another touchdown. And with Mason Taylor, the last 2 weeks, we've seen a huge increase in involvement, and especially that really translated into receptions this past week for Mason Taylor. I think against Dallas, he's all systems go as a locked and loaded tight end one. In the next tier, we have Travis Kelce, Brenton Strange, Zach Ertz, and Tommy Tremble. I want to mention with Tremble, JT Sanders is going to miss this game with injury, so all of the tight end work for the most part, especially the receiving game work, is going to go to Tremble. I think he's a fantastic play in what is potentially a smash spot against Miami. So if you don't have one of these upper tier tight ends, I think he is a fantastic option this week. In the next tier, we have both of the Cleveland tight ends, Fannin and Njoku. I think that with Dillon Gabriel, I think they're really not going to be scoring, but I think they're going to get a lot of short receptions out in the passing game. And I think that these two guys are going to eat the most out of anyone in this offense, with Jerry Jeudy in third place, most likely, in terms of receiving work. In the next tier, we have TJ Hawkinson, Dallas Goedert, Mark Andrews, Evan Ingram, and Michael Mayer. With Michael Mayer, he's just not Brock Bowers, but he is going to get a lot of that work, I think. It's a doable matchup against Indianapolis, and I think that if you are desperate, and especially if you're in a heavy premium, I think he's a decent play if you just really just don't have one of these better tight ends, right? And then in the final tier, we have AJ Barner, Dalton Schultz, Isaiah Likely, Theo Johnson, and Oronde Gadsden the second. With Isaiah Likely, I think we see a little bit more involvement in terms of actual targets this week. But I think the upside without Lamar Jackson is just capped in what's already a tough matchup. So I do think there are better options, including some of these less known guys that just generally don't start as much, like Tommy Tremble and Michael Mayer. But anyways, where do you guys agree? Where do you disagree with these rankings? Do you have any questions? Anything I got wrong? Let me know below in the comment section. If you would like, once again, I would really appreciate it if you would support my Patreon. As you can see with these videos that I do, if you saw the Bucky one I just made, or the Woody Marks one I just made, these videos get demonetized by the NFL and YouTube, and so your support is greatly appreciated. If you do not wish to or cannot, if you could just like the video, subscribe, share it with a friend, comment below, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks, guys, and have a good day.